welcome back to TF1C, the Formula 1 chat, and we are here today to discuss the Imola Grand Prix, and it was, some people calling it not a great one. Myself, I quite enjoyed it. I think Imola's a good circuit, but some people not so keen on it.
It certainly provided us with a lot of action.
Yeah, I think that.
But I do think
What happened?
Do think it was helped with the weather, but I still think Imola is a good circuit.
In fact, I do think it's mainly Leclerc fans that have been whinging about it, and that's probably just because Max dominated. But anyway, we'll start with quali, of course, at the start of the weekend, where we saw 5 red flags throughout the session. These are Formula 1 drivers, not even F2 and F3 had that many. We did have Roy Nissany smashing to all from the lead, but that review is coming tomorrow, so make sure to look out for that one if you're a fan of the feeder series. But yeah, 5 red flags, of course. Lando, should we start from the start of the session? Actually, that might make more sense. But Alex Albon blowing up.
Yeah, right brake.
Set himself on fire.
Set on fire. Set the tyre on fire, tyre exploded.
Have you heard the radio?
No.
The engineer goes, Alex, you're on fire. And he goes, oh, thanks, man.
Oh,
and then the engineer goes, no, literally, your brake is on fire. You need to find a safe place to pull over. Yeah, that was the first one. Then it was
Q2.
Then into Q2, K-Mag.
No,
wasn't it Aqua Minerale?
Sainz in Q2.
No, Sainz wasn't. Sainz was later in the session, I thought.
Yes.
It was K-Mag who went off at Aqua Minerale, I think, and almost put in the wall, but managed to keep it out and managed to save it on the gravel. But they were very trigger happy with the red flag, and then that called a pause to the session. Then it was Carlos Sainz
Another crash.
throwing it into the wall. It was either Carlos or Valtteri, I can't remember which order it was, but yeah,
Carlos.
Another big error from the Ferrari's number 2, which is interesting because obviously they're going to want someone up there that can fight with Checo so they can win constructors. And he's just signed a new 2-year deal. They were trying to get him to a 1 with an extension of a year, but Carlos wanted 2 confirmed years. But, yeah, I don't know. I think Carlos is a very good driver, but he's not had a good season.
So far.
In terms of, making big errors. Because I think the Ferrari is by far the quickest car. Not by far. Red Bull's close, of course, and it's had its reliability issues, but I think Ferrari's the quickest. That's evident. But, yeah, Carlos not been getting the most out of it. Will he get his first win this year? Does leave the question, will he bottle it from the lead? Anyway, then Valtteri Bottas's Alfa Romeo went pop and he was forced to retire from the session. And then Lando Norris on the final runs.
These two in Q3 were.
Yeah, on the final runs, just kind of went off track and stopped.
Yeah, Lando and K-Mag were the
same.
Wall,
almost.
They basically got on the outside white line.
I think the difference is people were annoyed at Lando because obviously it benefited him massively. And so people were like, well, did he think way? Yeah, of course. Whereas K-Mag's was he literally did try to save it out of the wall and that wouldn't have benefited him.
I do think these new race directors are, as you said, very trigger happy to chuck the red flag out early.
I don't mind that. I think it's better than refusing flat out to put it out until very late. Because it is, at the end of the day, a quali session. It's not the end of the... we can stop and then send all the cars out again.
Yeah. It's just, I think, for K-Mags, he hadn't crashed, his engine hadn't blown up.
Yeah, that one was a bit...
The car was still moving.
But equally, it looked like he'd beached it and he just about managed to save it. I do wonder maybe if qualifying could add some kind of added time to stop, people doing a Rosberg when he went down the escape road at Monaco and forced the session to end early because obviously there's a yellow flag in that area and no one could go quicker. So it does beg the question, could we perhaps see some added time or something like that so that drivers don't feel aggrieved that they've been robbed of quali laps by
so many different flags. As you mentioned, Rosberg at Monaco, Leclerc at Monaco, but then eventually that came back to him and he had
and even when it's not directly like the other the leader benefiting from it, you see drivers having off and then other drivers get their laps ruined and stuff because drivers are spinning and crashing.
Lando,
so maybe they could implement some kind of system there. Exactly, because no one could go quicker than him. Like Charles Charles couldn't then go for Max. Perez couldn't do another lap and get ahead of Lando. But yeah, Lando P3, K-Mag P4. Very happy with that grid. I think
strong results of both.
It was a very interesting one. I think it was almost ruined by the fact we had a sprint. Without a sprint, I've been very excited for that on Sunday.
Because obviously Max's
didn't come into fruition.
Was great to watch because the fact that he hit a pole lap in the wet, and then as he gets to set 3, he has to lift off for Bottas. His top lap, because of the red flag, the fastest lap of the session was where Max had to lift off.
Well, yeah, he got the driest run that wasn't interrupted. But it's 5 red flags is pretty mental for the top tier of motorsport. To see so many drivers struggling. I do think that is a big, and I think the fact that we've got new regs having new cars is a big part of play, and why we're seeing so many.
I don't think it's just a coincidence. Now I'm looking at it now. 2 are back into Formula 1 this year. 2 are in new cars.
And if you take into account the fact that Williams was a mechanical failure, the Alfa Romeo was a mechanical failure, Carlos was a spin, but you see that in quality that that's just part and parcel of the thing. K-Mag and Lando's was a bit more obvious and tough. Yeah, 3 red flags should be normal. 2 more added on because of mechanical failures and stuff. But yeah, so I don't think there's too much to look into there. Anyway, onto the sprint. Max, of course, on pole. But what we saw a lot over the weekend was that the pole sitter wouldn't get off the line very well. We saw it in F2, we saw it in F3, and then we saw it in Formula 1 with Max just not getting off the lights. Leclerc took the lead into turn 1. Fortunately for Max, Perez
got into third.
Perez got a brilliant start from 7th. And ended up right behind Max, I think.
No, that was the race. No, Lando was there, but Max...
No, because in the race, Max... Oh, yeah. Yeah, because Perez almost got a better race start than Max in the race, but we'll look at that. Anyway, in the sprint, Lando tucked in behind Max. So, kind of fortunate that Lando didn't go for him because he really wasn't off the lights. Well, it was a relatively fine start. Everyone came away unscathed. There's no damages, which I do think is a reason the sprint format needs to change. Because you're not going to see anyone barreling into turn 1 trying to get some overtakes, trying to get some moves, when they know that could ruin their Sunday.
Later on that one, Guan Yu Zhou's Sunday was ruined. Came to go with Gasly and brought out the
safety car,
which was out quite a lot this weekend as well.
Yeah, across the various different motorsports. I do think that it has a part to play that it's F2 and F3's first time there, but we'll get into that tomorrow. The changeable conditions we usually see at Imola obviously have part to play.
I thought when Leclerc got about 2 seconds ahead, I thought he would be on
finished,
pole
boring. But then I thought that played into Max's hands because we saw that it was slow from P1.
But, that didn't really matter. I think Leclerc just pushed way too hard at the start, ruined his tyres.
And Max was smart with it, patient, got a brilliant move around the outside into turn 1.
But again, we saw those two
on the sprint race from there.
Saw those two lock horns again.
Do you want to talk about sprint? I like the action of it. I don't rate the format though.
It's 50-50 for me because good things, we got to see Max and Charles battle again, and people like Perez and Sainz could get further up the grid.
I don't like that.
But no, I'm saying it's good for them.
Yeah.
And then obviously, bad thing, Guan Yu Zhou's weekend was ruined. Gasly somehow managed to get Latifi, which shocked me. The fact that he managed to pit in a sprint and still catch Latifi. Obviously, the safety car helps though, I guess. Yes, there's ups and downs.
I don't think the sprint should affect the race start. I think it should be a separate thing.
Like F2.
I like a reverse top 10, but then I don't think that's ever going to happen because I don't think you're going to get teams like Red Bull and Ferrari to agree to that kind of stuff.
Although,
because they'll be fuming if suddenly
Sainz would have been on pole.
They do a great lap and then Max has got to start from P10 on a Saturday. I don't think you'd get enough teams to vote for that.
So I think you reverse the grid, but I do think.
But for like Hassan's stuff, because it would have been if it was from the it would have been Carlos P1. But this week's not a good not good. But what's an example of it? Because it would be Carlos. But normally P10 is a lower midfield, very mid pack driver. So that would be interesting to see him on pole. Equally, it's a bit like the juniors. It works
because they're all in equal cars.
Because everyone's
you'd know that Red Bull and Ferrari just cut straight back through the grid and get back to the top 4, or at least Max
but also
Charles.
it does feel a little bit like we're gonna put this is all for entertainment. We're gonna put all the fast drivers at the back, all the slow ones at the front. We're gonna get loads of overtakes and stuff. I don't know if reversing the top 10 is a good idea. Maybe keeping everyone the same, but I think not having it affect the race start. And also, let's get the points down to P10. Absolutely no need to keep it. Just the top 8. Might as well make it 10 points. And 9, 8, 7,
at least they've made it 8 because obviously last year was 3.
Yeah. I mean, that's pointless. It's like 5-3-1, wasn't it, for the top 3?
No, it's 3-2-1.
Oh yeah, which is even more stupid. But yeah, I take a 10-1. I just think it would add something. So maybe that would be better. Because I want to see like Lando being able to fight for P3. Of course, he ended up on the podium, but like K-Mag was quality P4, but it was down to P8 by the time the race started. So it's pretty much over from there. Should we get into the race?
Yes.
It was obviously Max leading Charles from pole, with Perez third, Sainz fourth, and Lando Norris in third. I have to say, what a brilliant start for the Red Bulls. Ferrari's absolutely nowhere. Of course, Lando getting up the inside of both the Ferraris as well, and Daniel Ricciardo up the inside of Carlos. Mclaren looked to have some pace. Of course, though, that caused a collision. Another DNF for Carlos Sainz. Ricciardo managed to escape from it unscathed and continue on the race. Of course, he was demoted to last due to being in the gravel and stuff. But I think there's Rougeau and Mick still behind him. I think.
No, Ricciardo.
Already pitted. As well.
Yeah.
But it's another incident for Sainz. I think that there is a question that needs to be asked. Is it just bad luck? Is it bad driving? I think this one definitely not his fault. I think it's a racing incident.
It happens.
But
Ricciardo out the inside. Fault. You could argue that Sainz cut him off. You could argue that Ricciardo went too deep and didn't give Sainz enough room. That's racing. It happens. But again, Sainz not scoring anything. It's
been a big difference from the dominant 1-2 in Bahrain to. Crashing in quali here, crashing in quali in Melbourne.
It's going to mean that if this carries on, it's going to, Ferrari should have been capitalising and should be taking advantage of the fact that Red Bull have had 3 DNFs in the first 4 races. They should be. Whereas if this carries on, eventually it's not going to matter.
Well, also, Red Bull are only 11 points off now in constructors, and considering they've only had both cars in
1 race, Saudi,
2 races.
Oh, Perez not a fault?
Imola.
Saudi?
Imola and Saudi too.
Oh yeah, 2.
It was Bahrain double DNF and then Max didn't make it to the end in Australia.
Yeah.
So the fact they've only completed 2 races with both cars not suffering a failure. So that's it's not great start for Red Bull. But then here, absolutely dominant, taking the 1-2.
Taking full advantage of Sainz.
I think
Sainz wasn't there.
We saw well and truly what the difference could be in this championship fight, and it's experience.
Definitely.
We look at the start of last season for Max, and he seemed to he lacked that a little, but because of 2020, he had a bit more experience of what it's like to be in a title fight, and I think he just has more natural.
I think this is now Max's.
It's a bit of a weird term for it, but shithousery seems to work.
Yeah.
You know what you've got to do. The slightly dodgy things to win a championship.
Or about
just like tactical things. You're not like sticking rocket boosters on the back of the car.
If you're second, there's no point risking putting everything into going for the win and risk losing. Take the 7-point loss. Or just picking your battles and knowing who to fight and when to push and. Max has now had what I'd say. He's had loads of years fighting for wins, but I'd say he's now had 3 years where he's been fighting at the front for the championship.
Well, if you look at it, Red Bull, I think experience could gift him this championship. Perez, of course, we know he's been there donkey's years. Max and Sainz obviously both came in the same year in 2015 in the Toro Rosso, and then Leclerc was 2017.
Yes.
In Sauber, and So I do think the more experienced Red Bull does help, and the fact they were in the championship last year, because you look at it, Carlos, of course, spinning and crashing and qualifying, that cost him a lot that weekend, because I think he probably had the pace to take P3.
Yeah.
Which would have been P2 with obviously Leclerc's
last year,
and then
I
saw Leclerc spin.
Last year, I think we'd have sat here with it'd have been like a Red Bull 1-3, 1-4. But I think one thing that's going to be a huge advantage for Red Bull that they didn't have last year is that Perez is on the pace. Perez is massively up there.
Perez has improved a lot.
You think, he held off Leclerc for the whole race.
Well, yeah, the start of last season he was adapting to a new car. Now he knows the car, he knows the team. Max and him seem to have a really good connection. I mean, we saw them come out on the podium together.
By the way,
for the 1-2.
That Sky have now brought down the cool-down room camera.
Yeah, they've brought back the cool-down room.
Yeah.
They didn't have They didn't have it before. Remember, because they'd be out on the thing, they'd get their water and then they'd go up to the podium. But now they've brought back the cool-down room, which I think is very good.
They're all talking about how Lando got the podium and then Perez going over the.
There's been so many good moments in the cool-down room before, so I think that'll be good.
Obviously now talking about Leclerc's spin, and we've mentioned experience.
Because imagine like Leclerc's in there with Max and Perez after the race that happened. They'd be seeing Leclerc's spin rather than seeing Lando, Max and Perez talk about Leclerc's spin. But yeah, we'll talk about it. Leclerc pushing way too hard to get past Sergio Perez.
That's exactly what we're talking about experience.
For the sake of 3 points.
Something we would have seen Max do 3 or 4 years ago. But Max now knows what it takes.
I'd say it's even 2.
Yeah.
If it was 2019, I think he'd certainly be pushing. 2020, he obviously got really to the start, and the Merc was way too quick.
Yeah.
But yeah,
last year especially has showed Max has given Max what Leclerc doesn't, and that is what to win. Because Leclerc, you could tell he was so annoyed and frustrated that he wasn't at least P2, and he pushed way too hard on to try and catch Perez.
But it was a really strange moment. I don't know why he he just bounced right over that curve. And
he was pushing too hard, and he took way too much of the first curve.
And then he ended up P6, so in the end only got himself 8 points. He was getting 15. He cost himself 7 there, pushing too hard to get an extra 3.
Things like last year, 7 points could be a huge difference.
He did get good though, because he did well to get back up, because he did come out of the pits P9, then had to make his way back through a bit. But to be fair, he
didn't have more damage or anything.
They weren't really defending him too hard.
No.
Also, I'll get up the full order so we can check it out in full, and then of course we'll get into the championship. But yeah, Lando back on the podium, McLaren back on the podium.
McLaren of Imola. We've been to Imola in the last 3 years, and that's 3 podiums for McLaren. Ricciardo.
Yes. Well, Ricciardo was in the Renault.
No, it wasn't.
No, he was in the Renault in 2020.
I remember it, because everyone says it's the new McLaren lineup being on the podium for 3 years, but Ricciardo. So technically, McLaren been on the podium. I mean, Lando now back-to-back podiums at Imola. I think it's fair to say he likes Imola.
Yes, right. I'm going to get up the full order quickly.
I would obviously, Charles should have had P3 and Lando should have P4, but I think Lando still deserves it. He drove a great race. It was a very lonely race for him because he was miles off. He was miles off Leclerc and the Red Bulls, but he was so far ahead of Russell and everyone else. He kind of just drove a good race, and obviously, then he was because he drove a good race. He was then there to pick up the podium when Leclerc spun. Yeah,
brilliant job from him. Russell P4. I don't really know what to make of the Merc. Because they are well off the pace, seemingly. At least Lewis is very much off the pace.
I think Russell
he's struggling to adapt to the new car.
Russell is dragging it up, and then what he's doing is he's keeping it out of trouble. So, because obviously that order there, P4, add Leclerc, Sainz, Ricciardo. That's already P7.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take anything away from him or anything, but he's very much. I don't think I've seen him make an overtake. I think he made one on Kevin Magnussen and suddenly he's P4. But it's happened every race. It's like
that's what he needs to do.
He got P4 in Bahrain because of Red Bull double DNF. P5 in Saudi. It's like I never saw him.
Ricciardo, Alonso.
Australia P3 because
Sainz.
Sainz binned it. Verstappen DNF.
Pace. He's just the thing is though, he's doing a
And
great
then
job because
this weekend, P4.
not only is he doing well, to get in the right positions to pick up those results, he is embarrassing Lewis Hamilton.
I mean, a 7-time world champion being beaten by a teammate who was new to the sport this season.
It is miles away. Russell seems to be in a completely different
I think I said new to the sport, new to the team.
To Lewis at the moment.
New car, adjusting.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's Lewis, the fact that this year he's realised he's not going to win the championship and is kind of, doesn't really have anything to fight for and isn't really bothered.
Apparently he wanted to move to Ferrari. Was a rumour around the paddock, but then Sainz got a new contract. If he is looking at moving teams, I don't really see what options there are for him.
And I'll be honest, if this year carries on like it does, I don't know how many people are going to want him. I know he's a 7-time world champion. I know that. But still, if he's getting P13, 14 every race, he's not going to get a seat in one of the top teams.
Aston, I think, is where I'd put him.
I mean, him and Vettel would be great, but Stroll is
It'll be him and Stroll. No, but my thinking is they're going to want to... he's going to look at it as
look quick in the wet.
One last chance that Lawrence throws a load of money at it.
Yeah.
And he's got, and it works for Aston because they bring in a massive marketing tool.
Mm-hmm.
I also think he'd help to change the whole ethos and the feel of the team because we know there's a lot of
tension.
Lawrence is very demanding and commanding over that team. That's why Otmar left because he refused to be micromanaged.
And now got Mike Crack.
They do now have Mike Crack, so
sums it up.
That's interesting,
up, really, doesn't it?
And they of course got their first points of the season this weekend. Seb picking up P8, Stroll picking up P10. That's very good for them. P5 was ex-Mercedes driver last season, Valtteri Bottas.
Very good race.
He was just 6/10 off George Russell. I think 1 or 2 more laps, and that's P4.
He drove a fantastic race, Valtteri.
Yeah, coming back through from P7.
And I feel like
P7
Jones would have got a good result this weekend as well if he hadn't had a bad sprint.
Yeah. Sonoda P7. I think this is very interesting now for Tauri.
I owe him an apology after the predictions.
Yeah, well, you said, he's now.
I was right in quali. They were out in Q1, both of them.
Yes, Sonoda started 16th in the sprint, made his way up to 12th, but in the race up to P7. Great job.
Sonoda. So Gasly was what?
From the Japanese driver in his second season. Gasly, finished up 12th.
I do think Sonoda's kind of been the better driver this year.
I mean, championship says so as well. 16 points Yuki, 10 points Gasly.
Did DNF in
Interestingly, it's believed Helmut Marko is considering swapping Albon and Gasly. So Gasly to Williams, Albon to AlphaTauri, because they want to give Albon another chance in the AlphaTauri, but don't want to wait till 2023. They want to give him a half season. And if Gasly's looking at that Merc seat, in case Lewis leaves at the end of the season...
Because at this point, I think it's fair to say, Gasly has now run his course of being in the Red Bull seat.
Especially with so many juniors coming through.
If Red Bull do just let him go to Williams and become part of Merc.
But it'd make more sense to make that direct switch halfway through the season. I think. I mean, also, it'd be very fitting.
Yeah.
We saw them switch in 2019
I also
and then
think,
same switch again.
Because I do think they're going to need if Liam Lawson wins the F2 championship or Vips. Well, I know he's not. I think he's still Red Bull. But I think it's probably most likely be Liam Lawson for Red Bull. They're going to want to put him in an AlphaTauri seat.
Yeah, and I do think then they'll weigh up Yuki and Albon and they'll go, look.
And that'd be incredible with Liam Lawson got there.
Albon, sorry mate, you're going to get dropped. But I think there's a space for Albon in Formula 1. I think he's proved that this year with Williams. So even if he doesn't show that in AlphaTauri, I do think a move to like an Alfa Romeo, an Aston Martin, something like that.
Yeah, if Charles a bad season.
Which is not, but I'm thinking if Bottas decides to retire at the end of next season, that could be an option for Alexander Albon.
Yeah.
I just don't see him as a top team driver, if I'm honest. But a handy Perez type role, at a smaller team, like Perez in Force India, for those years dragging him up, I think that could work. But then running out the top 10, K-Mag got P9. 2 more points for the Haas team. Decent weekend for them. Schumacher, very unlucky to miss out on points, of course. Got himself up to P10 in the sprint after qualifying P12, but then to avoid the
took out
incident,
Alonso's
to avoid
race,
the Sainz.
that was a bit of a mess at turn 1 because everyone's trying to avoid that. Yeah,
The Sainz Ricciardo incident. He got on the curb, spun, lost it,
and obviously in the process, his rear end hit the side pod of Alonso,
and forced him.
And eventually
Forced him
Alonso had to retire
to
because
pit.
of the damage. But yeah, back to the top of the field to finish off.
I was going to say quickly, Gasly, Hamilton, and DRS.
Let's get on to DRS. This is an interesting one.
Because Hamilton would have passed Gasly if DRS was put on earlier, and Leclerc would have passed Perez, potentially not needing him to push so much. But
was a bit sceptical. Is that the right word?
I mean, Vettel's come out in defence of the FIA and said that he believes that the conditions were appropriate for wet conditions. Like, yes, they changed onto slicks, but still, you couldn't go offline without having a problem. You had to stick to the racing.
Anywhere else in the track, but I do think that the main straight, which is the only DRS zone, was quite dry.
Yeah, but if you look at last year, that's all we've got to take the account from, because obviously we've raced there before. Bottas and Russell, without DRS, they don't get that close. That doesn't happen. So if you look at that,
I think that was more
from
than
experience.
Idiots.
But still, Russell was so much faster. He then pulls out to the right, makes a mistake, tyre on the grass, into Bottas. We end up with a huge incident that causes a red flag, and we have to rethink the race. Instead, I think also there's a little bit of them trialling no DRS in Formula 1.
Yeah.
I think because obviously they had the wet conditions, so they could get away with it.
I think it's just
not
okay. We
putting it
know
on.
these race directors are, we know because obviously the amount of red flags we get, and they're very trigger happy. We do know these race directors are very much, making sure that F1 is very safe. So I guess they didn't.
They're also.
Like they needed DRS,
I think they've been very clear, concise, and blunt with the rules.
We haven't had Abu Dhabi yet. We're just waiting.
But that's what I'm saying is, there's not going to be any Lewis just bolting it over thing. Also, Max and Charles aren't like that. Clearly, all the racing's been very respectful. But you're not going to see anyone, just going across some.
Oh yeah.
Every track limits is getting clamped down on massively.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's been more in the juniors. We've seen Oliver Behrman, of course, robbed. He lost his win in the Bahrain sprint race because he ran wide.
Yeah.
And so, he was then penalised for that. But not just once, it was continuous. So they penalised him for it. And we've seen that a lot in F2. Even in Imola this weekend. Yeah. It was Almery Cordial. I think he got every penalty under the sun.
He got a 10-second, a drive-through, a stop and go.
I know we'll obviously discuss that in our video tomorrow. But Hamilton couldn't get past Gasly. I don't think DRS would have made a difference there.
No, Hamilton.
Because he still didn't get past him after the DRS was taken away. But yeah.
My Gaz. Hamilton just can't overtake Gasly. That's it. Simple. Done. Just cannot overtake him.
Gasly's a very good driver. Could he replace Hamilton next season? Who knows?
But yeah. Anyway, back to the top to finish.
Should we run for the championship?
It would take for us to get 4 races for Max and Charles to be the top 2.
Well, they were top 2 after. Oh no, they weren't after Bahrain, were they? No,
exactly.
Fair enough.
I thought they'd be probably the top 2 for most of the year, but it's taken 4 races.
Yeah.
Finally, we're here, and Max Verstappen sits behind Charles Leclerc. Do I go through the rest of it? Not the whole thing.
Yes. So of course, Charles is top 86 points with Max in second 59. 27 separate them now, which is a lot closer. If Max was to win and take fastest lap in Miami and Charles was to blank, then it would be just 1 point between the two. Very interesting. And we've got Monaco coming up soon, and we all know that Leclerc will not start in Monaco, so that's good. Third is Perez, 54. It's Russell in fourth, 49. Followed by Carlos, 38. Lando, 35. Lewis is 7th on 28 points.
Well, yeah, because he got...
Yeah,
Bahrain.
he got P3 in Bahrain, and then has picked up a few minor points since then. Bottas in 8th, 24. Very good season for him. People didn't think that Lewis and Bottas would ever be that close, even in the Mercedes. Now just 4 points separate them.
Bottas could beat him in the championship.
Then 4 points behind Bottas is Ocon in 9th on 20 points, and Kevin Magnussen rounds off our top 10 with 15. Only drivers not to score so far are Mick Schumacher, Nicholas Latifi and Nico Hülkenberg, but I don't think that's very fair.
He won't score this year.
No.
But that's alright.
Hopefully not, at least, because that would mean that either Stroll or Vettel has got COVID or other issues. Right, on to the constructors. Bottom is, of course, Williams on a point. 9th is Aston Martin with 5. That's interesting. They've invested a lot and not a lot's happened. 8th is Haas, 15 points. I think they've been very unlucky. I'd say they've been better than AlphaTauri in 7th with 16 points. Mick just keeps getting, bit not the luck going his way. Anyway, Alpine 6 on 22. It's Alfa Romeo in 5th with 25 points. McLaren are in 4th on 46. It's Merck with 77. Should have kept Bottas, man. In P3, it's P2. It's Red Bull, 113 points. And Ferrari, pretty much being carried by Leclerc. No, joking, but 124 points. 86 of those from Charles.
P2 and P4. That's it?
P2, P3.
P2, P3.
No score.
Fair enough. Okay.
Right, of course. Next up is Miami. We'll have our predictions out the Friday before it gets going. Yeah, that'll be the 6th of May. That'll be our video for the Miami predictions. And yeah, this is hotting up for what will be a very good season. 4 rounds in now, still 19 to go. Once we have the confirmation, because it's 23 this year, isn't it?
Yes,
we've still got. It says 22 currently because they've still got to work out what they're doing with Russia.
But that will probably be like.
It's either going to be a Qatar sprint, Qatar on the current circuit.
Not the MotoGP one. Great.
Losail.
That's fun.
Or it's going to be like
Turkey?
it could be. I guess Turkey's an option. It's got to be in
Turkey
there.
He was good last year. Lance Stroll.
2020.
Lance Stroll on pole.
They didn't have it in 21.
Yeah. I know, but still, let me just have a moment with Lance Stroll on pole.
Yeah, he likes the wet and the changeable conditions. Didn't do it this well, to be fair. 10th. It's massive for him.
It's alright.
Right, that is about all for this video. If you have enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and comment down below. Just have a conversation about F1 with us. Give us your thoughts about the race, anything we've said in this video that you find relatively interesting. We'll have our F2 and F3 stuff out tomorrow, so hope you guys enjoy that. But yeah, that's everything. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you next time.
See ya.